As I shared with you last week, Pastor Dave Fields is away for the next 2 Sundays, taking his last 2 courses at Acadia back in Nova Scotia. And I really encourage you to pray for David. The paper he's going to be producing, I think is going to have an impact upon everyone at Summit who teaches, everyone who shares the word in small groups, Sunday school, from the pulpit here on Sunday mornings. So keep David in your prayers. About 14 years ago, a new minister arrived in town, and I decided I would take him for coffee. And we met over lunch, and it wasn't long before I discovered I knew his brother. His brother and I attended Seattle Pacific University in the 70s, and it was really kind of humorous. But anyways, I've become a friend of our guest speaker this morning, Harold Wiest. And he's going to have he has a really good word for us here today. And so why don't we just give Harold a warm Summit Drive welcome here today. And of course, the reason we can steal him from the Presbyterian Church today is the fact that he's retired about 39 days ago, something like that.
35 days ago. But who's counting?
That's right. So we want to ease him into this retirement, so preach the word, brother.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Pastor Harry, for your kind words. It has been a privilege to get to know your pastor over these past 14 years. He said my feet had barely settled in Kamloops when he invited me out to coffee. And not only did we find out that we had both attended the same undergraduate school, but that and he not only knew my youngest brother, but he had attended school in Canada with the woman who became my brother's wife. So it was nice to have those special connections. And thank you for giving this recently retired pastor the opportunity to share God's word with you today. Let us pray. Father, as we once again look at your word today, quiet our restless hearts so that we may truly hear what you would say to us. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our salvation. Amen. This morning I'm going to speak about something very scandalous. I'm going to be talking about that thing the Bible calls grace. And if you don't think God's grace is scandalous, I hope that by the end of this sermon you do. Please turn with me to the first chapter of the Gospel of John. John begins the book with a tremendous statement about Christ. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. From there, John goes on to tell about this Word who was the light of men and women, but how the world did not recognize him. And then we come to the following statement about Christ, which I will read beginning with verse 14. Hear God's enduring word. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testifies concerning him. He cries out, saying, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me has surpassed me, because he was before me." From the fullness of his grace we have all received one blessing after another. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. This is God's word. What is this thing we call grace? What is this thing that Jesus never directly spoke about, but which Paul and Peter can't stop writing about? What is this thing that Jesus never spoke about, but which was exhibited in extravagant ways both during his life among us and following his ascension into heaven? What is this thing called grace that both Christians and non-Christians alike misunderstand? A simple definition of grace is that it is God's undeserved or unmerited favor. The Bible teaches that grace is God giving good to us that we could never hope to deserve or earn. God showed his grace in sending his only Son to die for us on the cross in our place. The words of Romans 5:8 spell this out for us. God demonstrates his own love for us, his absolutely unmerited favor in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That is grace in capital letters. And God continues to bestow his grace on us each and every day as he gives us other things we could never deserve nor earn. His guidance in life decisions, his peace when life seems to be falling apart, his forgiveness when we disobey him, his strength when we try to do his will, his healing power when we are sick. And I could go on and on. Now, many of you probably heard that definition of grace from your Sunday school days until now. You might even have that definition of grace committed to memory. It is nothing new to you. You even sing about it. But do you really understand what it means when we say that God is a God of grace? Well, we begin to grasp this concept when we understand that grace simply means that bound up in our Heavenly Father's heart is an inclination to give benefits to undeserving people. Now, humans are known to bestow benefits on deserving people. For example, if you are known as a hard-working employee, your boss, out of the goodness of his or her heart, may give you the afternoon off or a bonus after you've just finished an unusually difficult project. Or if you measure up to some standard, whether that be an educational, work, or beauty standard, you might be deemed worthy to be rewarded in some fashion. There is nothing unusual about this type of behavior. You see this kind of grace all the time, but God's grace is far above this human version. God's grace is as extraordinary as human grace is ordinary. He gives good things even to undeserving people. And it is at this point that we begin to see the scandal of grace. John Stott, in his marvelous book, Authentic Christianity, reminds us that the repeated promises in the Quran of the forgiveness of a compassionate and merciful Allah are all made to the meritorious, whose merits have been weighed in all the scales, whereas the gospel is good news to the undeserving. The symbol of the religion of Jesus is the cross, not the scales. Another basic truth about grace is that it is unfair, and that is just scandalous to many people. Because of grace, repentant sinners do not get what fairness would say they deserve. Bill Hybels, in his book, The God You Are Looking For, says that to understand this aspect of grace, we must compare it to justice and mercy. And he sets up the following scenario to help us do that. Let's say you wake up one morning and, as is your custom, you throw on your robe and go outside to get the morning paper. As you do, you hear the screech of rubber and look up to see the teen who lives down the street from you driving his father's car. You know that he's only 14, not old enough to have a driver's license. He's barely tall enough to see over the steering wheel, and he is driving the car literally all over the street. He careens from side to side, out of control, and finally crashes into your yard, barely missing you, and totally destroying your mailbox, part of the hedge you put in last year, and your brand new fence. You run to the car, discover that the boy is okay, and then at this point, you have three choices. Your first choice is to treat this teen with justice. That means you give him exactly what he deserves. You call the police knowing that he will be given a ticket for driving without a license. You call his parents to tell them what happened, knowing that he will be grounded until he is 39 years old. And you force the boy to get a job to pay for your mailbox, your fence, fence and your hedge. Now, exercising this option does not make you a bad person. You are simply giving the boy exactly what he deserves. No more, no less. You are being fair or just. Your second option would be to treat this wayward adolescent with mercy. Mercy is giving someone a little less than what he or she deserves, adding a little compassion to your judgment of his behavior. If you choose this option, you might say, I'm not going to call the police, but I am going to call your parents, and we are going to sit down and agree on the cost of the mailbox, hedge, and fence, and you will have to work out some way to repay me. This should make the teen very happy and thankful because he is getting less than he deserves. You are being merciful to him. But there is a third option. It doesn't square with human common sense. It is risky. It could blow up in your face. Some might even call it scandalous. Your third option is this. Instead of treating the boy with justice or mercy, you might choose to treat the kid with grace. And here's what that would look like. You help the boy out of the car and say something like, you messed up, young man. You destroyed my mailbox and flattened my fence. I saved up 2 years for this fence and it was installed just a week ago. You also took out my hedge. I just trimmed that hedge and take great pride in keeping it looking sharp. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get it to match up again. You also nearly killed me, but I'm not going to call the police. I'm not even sure I want to get you in a whole lot of trouble with your family. I can fix the mailbox and the fence and even the hedge. And I will. Why don't you and I get in my car and go find a place where we can get a burger and sit down and talk? Then I can find out a little bit more about you, who you are, and what's going on in your life. But there's only one condition. I'll drive. Now, what is your reaction to that last choice? You might say, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. All this delinquent will do is take another joyride tomorrow and plow into somebody else's mailbox. And you know, he just might do that. That is the risk and scandal of grace. But it is also possible that your graceful choice will touch the boy at the deepest part of his soul. Your interest in his welfare and future might be the one thing that will unlock potential that he has long since forgotten. Your action may lead to the transformation of his life. That might be the turning point for this young man. That is grace, an absolutely undeserved, unfair gift. This is so hard for us to comprehend. In fact, it may be next to our need to forgive others, the most difficult spiritual truth for us to embrace. Justice is so much easier for us to understand than grace. When we are incensed by the crimes of others, horrified by the evil that stalks our world, we all want a God of justice. 2 months ago, the news reported that David Conley broke into a house near Houston, Texas, and then killed 2 adults and 6 children. Would you be surprised that family and neighbors demanded justice? And in August, we heard the horrific story of a young 20-year-old woman who killed her infant son before going to a party at a disco because the child was keeping her from the lifestyle she enjoyed. People are asking for justice. And closer to home, people who had to leave their homes in the Oliver area this summer because of the wildfires, some returned only to find that criminals had broken in and stolen a lot of their belongings. We are incensed at such a heinous crime committed against people who were already dealing with a lot on their plates. We wanted the police to find those perpetrators and throw the book at them. But if any of us were to die tonight, which would we want to prevail? God's justice or His grace? You see, if God is truly a God of only perfect justice and not loving grace, then there is nothing that will protect any of us from His divine judgment. If He was only a God of perfect justice, then we would all be in a lot of trouble, because as it says in the 3rd chapter of Romans, there is no difference, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And the wages of sin, the just and fair thing that we all deserve, is death. We deserve death, says the Bible, but because of God's grace, our salvation is free. We don't contribute anything to our salvation. Even that first nudging of faith that leads a person to God is His gracious gift to us. In John chapter 6, Jesus says as much. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. In fact, the only thing we contribute to our salvation is our sin. As it says in Romans 3, we are justified freely by His grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. But we sometimes have great difficulty believing that it could actually be free. During the season of Advent, and for the non-liturgical among you, that's the 4 Sundays before leading up to Easter, or to Christmas. A pastor by the name of Marjorie Kitchell decided to illustrate the availability of God's salvation. Whoever wants this beautiful Christmas poinsettia may have it, she said to her congregation. All you have to do is take it. Marjorie reports that they just stared at her. She waited. And waited. And waited some more. Finally, a mother timidly raised her hand and said, I'll take it. Great, it's yours. That's what she had wanted, quick and easy, and on with the application of her sermon. But to her astonishment, the woman nudged her son and said, go get it for me. No, said Marjorie, whoever wants this gift must come and get it personally. You can't send a substitute. The woman shook her head, not willing to risk embarrassment. She waited again. It was a gorgeous flower, unusually large, wrapped in bright red cellophane with a gold satin ribbon. It was set in front of the pulpit to brighten their small sanctuary during the holiday season. Several people had commented on how beautiful the plant was. Now it was free for the taking. Someone snickered. What's the catch? No catch, she replied. It's free. No one moved. A college student asked, is it glued to the altar? Everybody laughed. No, it's not glued to the altar, nor are there any strings attached. It's yours for the taking. Well, asked a pretty teenager, can I take it after the service? Marjorie shook her head, though she was tempted to give in. You must come and get it now. Today is the day of salvation, she thought as she marveled at the power of passive resistance. Marjorie was beginning to wish she'd never started the whole thing when a woman she'd never seen before stood up in the back. Quickly, as if she were afraid she'd change her mind, she strode to the altar and picked up the plant. I'll take it, she said. As she returned to her seat carrying the free gift, Marjorie launched with enthusiasm into her text, Romans 6:23. The gift of God is eternal life. Believe, receive. It's free. When the service had ended and most of the people had gone home, the woman who claimed the poinsettia came to the platform where the pastor was picking up her Bible to leave. Here, she said as she held out her hand, this flower is too pretty to just take home for free. I couldn't do that with a clear conscience. Marjorie looked down at the crumpled paper the woman had stuffed into her hand. It was a $10 bill. What is it that keeps you from accepting God's gift? What is it that keeps you from accepting God's gift? Are you trying to gain some brownie points with God? Are you trying to get good enough so that God will accept you? Are you trying to overcome some fault, some addiction, some failure before coming to God? Nothing you can do will ever make you good enough to deserve God's grace. The scandal of God's grace is that it is undeserved and for the undeserving. But perhaps the greatest scandal is the extent of that undeserved grace. If grace is going to come to anyone, it should be to sinners up to my caliber. But that's about the limit. Just the mention of the name of Jeffrey Dahmer sent shivers of revulsion through many people in the early 1990s. For those who were born before that time or don't remember, Dahmer was the individual who was convicted of the murder of 17 men and boys, many whom he had abused and then cannibalized. As one person commented, he said that his computer's thesaurus had 32 synonyms for the word vile, but each of them fell short of describing the appalling actions of this troubled man. He redefined the boundaries for brutality. Sometime later, an interviewer asked Dahmer how he could possibly do the things he did. And Dahmer said that at the time he didn't believe in God, so he felt accountable to no one. He began with petty crimes, experimented with small acts of cruelty, and then just kept going and going further and further into depravity. Dahmer went to prison for his crimes, where he himself was eventually beaten to death by another prisoner. Now, what would you say if Dahmer had turned to Christ and repented of his sin? Most would probably have the same initial reaction that I had when I heard that the notorious Watergate figure Chuck Colson had accepted Christ while in prison. We would be very skeptical. And not only that, but with a person like Dahmer, we might have a hard time believing that God would let him off easy. You and I are like that. We think that God's grace is sufficient for average sinners, but not big enough for deviants like this guy. But that's exactly what happened. Some months before his death, Dahmer turned to Christ and repented of his sin. People who knew him in prison said that when this happened, his total demeanor changed. Dahmer became one of the most faithful worshipers at the prison chapel, active in Bible study and a prolific reader of Christian books. Those who knew him said that he had experienced a changed life. God's grace to you and me, that's great. But God's grace to a person like Jeffrey Dahmer, now that's scandalous. How scandalous, you ask? One woman who heard of Dahmer's conversion said that if Dahmer was going to be in heaven, she didn't want to be there. Now do you know why we call this grace amazing? Grace is amazing because it goes against the grain of common sense. It is amazing because it is scandalous. It is amazing because so many people reject it. It is amazing because it comes to us freely. It is amazing because all we have to do to receive it is to admit our guilt and our utter helplessness. It is amazing because it comes to us as a gift through Jesus Christ. From the fullness of his grace, we have all received one blessing after another. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. The old songwriter speaks of this truth this way. Wonderful grace of Jesus, greater than all my sin. How shall my tongue describe it? Where shall its praise begin? Taking away my burden, setting my spirit free, for the wonderful grace of Jesus reaches even me. Have you experienced that wonderful, amazing grace of Jesus? My prayer is that if you haven't, you will today. And then, will you pass on that grace to others? For with that grace, you have something that the world desperately needs, but which it can't offer.